We left off by creating this background layer, which is underneath the front that we just made. And so now what we'll do is we will take our brush and we will start to put in some details for the background. Notice I have the darker color on top here, and I can just make the brush as big as I need it here. And notice I don't have to be very careful because I am drawing underneath, so I can just come in here, put in any of this other detail that represents the back wing. And the same thing for down here. Make the brush a little bit smaller with the left bracket key. And because this is just a test, I'm going to stick with these two colors. And again, if you have the time and you want to do this really nice, you could create swatches with these colors that you just made by just simply having whichever color you want to convert into a swatch. Go to the drop down menu here in the swatches panel, select new swatch, puts that swatch in at the bottom, then you'd flip flop these colors, go new swatch again, and then you could make additional colors, say like for the beak and for the feet and so on. So then what I'm going to do is once I'm happy with that one sequence is I'll select this frame, shift click to select the, and what I say in frame I mean layer, and then I'm going to go to the drop down menu here with both of those selected, and I'm going to select merge layers. Those two layers become merged, and then I can call this, like, say, let's call it 1A. So we'll know that we'll have a 1, a 1A, and then we'll do the same with 2. So I'm going to click on layer 2, toggle the eyeball on. I'm going to create a new layer that I am going to call 2, let's call 2F for front. Then let's create a new layer. Again, double click to name, and we'll call this 2B for back. Start with the front just like we did before with the brighter color to a point where it would help to see what lies below. In other words, seeing this one, I can click on layer 2, decrease the opacity to say, you know, something like 40-50%, and then I can see my drawing under here, make sure that my cursor goes back to 2F before I continue drawing, but that'll help me stay a little bit more consistent with drawing out the body and the eyeball. So I brought the opacity back up to 100%. I have switched foreground background colors, and now I am on 2B. And make that brush a little smaller there. Get some of this detail. And again, since I'm drawing underneath, I don't have to be too careful, but any areas that I want to make a representation of those back, whoops, went too far there, Command Z. And to help me position the eye, I'm going to go back to 2F, change the opacity down to 50% so I can see through to the original eye, and then making sure that I stay on 2F. I'll just put the eye in, go back, change it to 100%, and we should be okay. My bird's looking kind of underfed, especially in the wing department, but that's okay for this test. I'll repeat the steps we did before for combining these layers by selecting both of them, going to the drop down in the layers panel and going to merge layers, and then again, whoops, double click right here to rename that, and that will be 2B. And then we're just going to create all those same steps so that we have a drawing for each of the other layers. Okay, so at this point you should have your kind of sketchy drawing for each of the frames. This is definitely not the prettiest work I've ever created, but it will suffice for an example of, you know, something that feels original, has its own quirkiness to it. So now what we're going to do is we'll go back up to Window in Timeline. We will use this little drop down here and we will delete the animation. then let's try a little shortcut here. What we'll do is we'll drop this down and we'll say make frames from layers. That's going to give us too many frames, but then all we have to do is just select the ones that are not ours. Let's see if I can select non-contiguous ones. So there's a selection. If I hold down Command, yeah, that'll work. Then hopefully I can just go delete. No, that didn't work. Let's try delete frames. There we go. So just by clicking, holding down the Command key, selecting the ones that we do not want, we now have our animation in here. And now a really nice thing about this is the background was set to transparency when we set up the animation, and now we have a transparent background. So if we bring this into another file, we could have trees and a lake and everything drawn here, and this will just sit right over the top of it, not interfere by having a big white box around it. So let's play that, and you can see that's not too bad. The eyeball's pretty quirky, the beak kind of grows and comes back, but for now this is perfect. Later on, when you're working on an actual project, you will take the time to make this thing look great, either here in Photoshop if you're more of a painterly person, or we can also do this in Illustrator using the pen tool and or basic shapes. What will actually turn in for this assignment will be that animated GIF. So follow the instructions from before to do the file, save for web, make the GIF, and of course save that as your last name underscore first name underscore anim GIF, something like that, and you will be all set to move on to the project. Just one thing to point out during the saving process here is we can definitely cut way back on the amount of colors. You may not want to go that far back because there are some colors that are created on the overlaps due to the fact that we have the softness of the brush on 4. But I mean, we can even go to 64, and then you might want to compare the size of this GIF to the one you made before where it was set on 256.